Hey, good people. I just got done with a little walk. Welcome to the woods and to Sundays. I decided to set aside a little time this week to be out in the nature. It's very hot, but I'm glad I did it. Today's video is going to be a bit of a personal one, so all I beg is kindness from me and from anyone else. So last week was also pretty heavy. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been spending a lot of time with the parts that come up for me around romantic relationships, romantic encounters, potentially romantic encounters. And I'm not necessarily in the place that I'm very eager to re-enter something serious, but that my behavior in potentially romantic situations is something that intrigues me a lot, and I think it's very connected to a lot of other things that are coming up right now. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about it. And therapy this week, my therapist kind of called me out a little bit, but for a little while now I've been getting a lot more potentially romantic attention than I'm accustomed to. And what I said in therapy this week is, this never happens to me. To which I got a resounding, I don't think that's true, from her. And that's probably right. It's definitely not something that I'm accustomed to acknowledging or maybe even perceiving. So last Sunday, in kind of thinking about this and some other things, I made a list of things that I tell myself in my head, and these range from as recently as yesterday to just things that I know come up on a regular basis. I'm going to read that list. I was a bad child. I was a difficult child to raise. I'm a hard person to love. It will take a very specific, special person to love me, and I'll probably reject her. If I fail, people won't like me. People will leave me. People will discover that I'm really not good at anything. I don't deserve praise. I haven't earned respect. I am not good enough for her. I'm not smart enough for her. I'm not fun enough for her. I'm not masculine enough for her. I'm not masculine enough. I'm too effeminate. I'll never find a partner. I'll never stop getting bored and quitting. I'll bounce from one thing to another. I don't have follow through. I'm obsessive. I'm a monster. A lot of these things that I tell myself that come up or come up in those potentially romantic encounters. And I kind of made that list without that specific thing in mind, but that was a lot of what came up for me, as you could hear. And so many of those things are connected. So, recently I've had more of these experiences that I'm used to, and I've kind of taken it as a point of personal development, because once upon a time I wouldn't have even acknowledged or I would have done nothing to act on this. Like, I am attracted to someone and I think they're cool, never would have bridged that gap. Or if I perceive that somebody finds me attractive, thinks I'm cool, I never would have initiated like a first move. And that's not necessarily true now. Like, I've been initiating those first moves. They haven't gone anywhere, and that's okay, but it's a personal triumph just to have have said, hey, you're cool, here's my number, can I have yours? And, but what's been happening is like that happens and then nothing. Like I don't go any farther with it to the point that I just do not respond. And it can be charming, I'm funny, I know what I want to say, I know where I want to go with it, but I just don't. And that's the thing that has been intriguing me. Why? What is it? I'm already doing more than I would have maybe not too long before I met my ex-wife, but why am I stopping? What is in that moment? And so in therapy this week, I read that list and we explored that. We explored why I don't go any farther. And something came up for me that it was the only clear thing. And as I've spent more time with it, I've kind of realized the depth of it and its validity. But in trying to access these parts, I kind of realized that there was one part of me that was very eager to get back into a relationship, to find a partner, and to find that intimacy that this part craves. And then there's another part that is very aware of the risk that's involved in that, especially right now, and kind of like pumps the brakes with some logic, which makes this other part kind of resentful, and I truly do feel like these two parts really kind of take over just in their friction. Because on the one hand, I really, really want this, and I know that I could go for it, and it would probably yield some very positive fruit. And on the other hand, I'm just kind of deathly afraid of it. So as we kind of tried to access both of those parts this week, it was very, very challenging. But the thing that came through as I'm just like putting this question out there of why don't I proceed any further, this feeling came back at me that if I do, if I continue the conversation or make that attempt to get to know somebody and they reject me and they leave me, that it makes everything on that list true. And not true in the sense that it really is true. I mean, I don't think that rejection or perceived abandonment validates those, but it validates them to me. My mind goes looking for a reason why this didn't work out, why it just kind of fizzled. And I've got a pick list, it's a multi-select. Just pick any one of these that you feel like apply. You weren't masculine enough, you don't want to have enough fun, you're too boring. Just pick, and that's what I've always done in a lot of different situations, not just romantic, but I take my little list and I'm like, hey, these things fit and make me feel like absolute crap. Let's go with that. Which again doesn't really tell me what to do with that part yet, but just kind of acknowledging what's there, the reason behind why I behave the way I do. And I told my therapist this week, it really sucks because all of those things on that list come from somewhere, and some of them I know. Some of them I know what they're connected to, what events and what times of my life that they're connected to, and kind of already working through that, so already working to validate and love those parts that need it. But I told my therapist this week that it really sucks that some of us, probably many of us, have to unlearn how to be what we've been. Have to unlearn those things on that list because we've learned them. Sometimes they were taught to us. I don't know if I've said this here before, but I was talking to a friend not too long ago, and he was referring to the period of time in his life post-divorce that, he referred to it as an emotional growth spurt. And I feel like that's really accurate to where I am. Necessary, but uncomfortable. And it sucks. Just sucks. But on the flip side, it is really encouraging to be learning so much about me, and every single day accessing new information, and you know, being in therapy helps me make sense of that information. It helps me sort through and process and continue down the journey without just constantly running in a circle. And so I'm still very grateful that that's a part of my life. You know, I know that I'm not alone in having a list of things that I tell myself. Maybe you don't have a physical list, but I know I'm not alone in having to unlearn these things, and that's why I do this. I shared a meme recently. I think I talked about it last week, but it was the most accurate thing. Some of us heal in public, so those who do it in private can keep going. And that sounds a little self-righteous, and it's not for me, but this is hard. It's hard to go through, it's hard to share, and not everybody processes the same way I do. But I hope that if somebody sees this and has that list and feels those things, that they find some comfort in the fact that they're not unique, and that somebody else out here thinks it sucks that we have to go through this. This week's song is one that I've loved for a very, very long time. I share it around a lot with friends, but it's You Can't Rush Your Healing by Trevor Hall. It'll be accurate on the playlist, but go to the playlist. It's kind of about general feelings of loss or pain, things that you have to go through, and how the fact that it is okay to take however much time you need and to process it the way you need to, because you can't rush it. Like, it would be wholly irresponsible and a disservice to you to rush through that. And it's a good little chill, calm, sit here in the woods and just reflect kind of thing. So listen, and thank you for being on this next little leg of the journey. We're in this together. See you next week.